Hi, it's Cassie, artist in residence with Imagine. Today we're going to make this really fun, awesome mixed media canvas using fireworks spray and some other Imagine elements. So I'm starting with white gesso, and you can see here I have this recycled just piece of packaging. I really love using recycled and upcycled pieces so that we've got less waste, right? And this was the perfect frame, so I really was excited to use this. So I'm just starting with some modeling paste and this fun stencil here with the I guess bubbles or dots. I really am going to have sort of a circle theme going through this piece, and so having that repeating pattern is nice. So while that's drying, I have brought over the resin pieces, and I'm going to get these gessoed as well. That's generally how I start when I'm going to work on a mixed media piece. I get everything sort of gessoed and primed and ready to go so that they can accept other pigments after that once they've dried. The next step is going to be to use this awesome moth stamp and the VersaFine Clear Nocturne, of course. And I'm just going to stamp that right onto vellum. And then I wanted to emboss it to make it nice and shiny, give it a little bit of dimension. So I'm using the black embossing powder from Imagine. And then I'm just going to fussy cut around that whole piece. I really like the way that the vellum stands out and really accept some of the background color too for these stamped images. So I was really pleased with the vellum there. And then I decided I wanted all three sizes of moth, and I cut them all out twice and covered them with black embossing powder and fussy cut them because I wanted to have sort of two-dimensional, or I guess three-dimensional moths, and I wanted the wings to sort of stick up, but also have the full image like flat on the surface. So I cut two of each, and we're going to layer them later on. So next I'm going to work on the background, and look at this awesome paper. I love the color. I love the texture. I love the little dots and sort of sparkles in the background. So I'm just sort of bringing that out with some fireworks spray and some pico embellisher in the black there. I'm splattering and just using these different textures and different dimensions to bring some visual interest and contrast and really bring out that background that is really gorgeous. So next I'm going to use some fireworks spray on the resin pieces that I've gessoed and primed, and I'm using a bright pink for the background of this heart, and then I'm using a little bit darker pink on the edges there to just to give it some depth. So dried those pieces all completely, and then anytime I really want a good stark white piece, I always use this all-purpose ink in white. It is gorgeous and brilliant white, and so I really wanted that girl to be nice and bright white. Sticking the moths together with the glue dots so that they can have some depth, and then using some cantaloupe and dandelion fireworks spray for that flame gives it a little bit more dimension there with the two different shades. So if you didn't know, Creative Medium works really well as an adhesive when you're sticking down somewhat heavier pieces. When you're working in mixed media, sometimes you have resin or metal or things like that that are a little bit heavier, and so Creative Medium works really well as a great adhesive. So now while all those other pieces are drying, I'm going to use the fireworks spray in Tuxedo Black and cover all of those gessoed surfaces and where the texture is, and then I'm going to spritz some water over it. This really helps to give it some more dimension and makes it look sort of stained, and I really like the variation and the in the color and the opacity. So then I got to do the same thing on the back here. I wanted the whole piece to be finished, and I added all of this great texture to the back. This was really fun to play with, all of that texture on that large surface. So while that is drying, I've gone back to my background, and I just took strips of the paper that I'd cut around the edges to make it fit into this frame, and then sort of realign them, and that is where I'm going to put the phrase later on that's going to make for a nice frame to accentuate those words. So I'm ready to stick the background into the frame, and so I'm using this matte medium as an adhesive here. It's a bit thinner than, let's say, the gel that we were using before, or that we're going to use later too, and just works really well as a good adhesive for paper to paper. So now I'm getting this heavy gel back out because I need to stick down some heavy pieces, right? And we want to make sure that you have a good, strong adhesive to do that, so that they're not going to fall off later on. So I'm going to stick down all of the resin pieces with the heavy gel because they are heavier elements that we're putting down in our piece. And sticking down the rest of the elements, I added the dimensional moths there, the smaller moths, and all of the words that make up the phrase. And I just printed those on paper, and cut them out using the font that I wanted. So we need to decorate this handle here, and so I didn't want to leave it just the plain plastic black, so I decided to use some washi tape. I've got tons of it, right? We all do, and this was just a fun way to add a little bit more pattern and fun to the handle there. And again, you see the circles there are repeating. They're on the handle, they're on the frame, they're on the background. We've splattered and created circles that way, and so having that repeating pattern over and over again really helps to make your piece more cohesive and more of a single unified piece, right? And then I'm just adding a little bit of fun. There's stars on there, but it's just a fun gold, and I like the whimsy and the sort of different element that it brings. And then to finish off that handle, I added some fibers. I add some ribbon and some twine there, and string in different colors and textures, and I thought that finished it off nicely. So then the very last thing I wanted to do is use some on-point glue, which is fantastic for sticking down paper to paper, or in this case we are doing all those little sequin confetti pieces, which I thought matched the background beautifully and really helped to just finish it off and bring it all together. And you see I put some on the frame there as well. So here is all of the texture and beautiful fireworks shimmer, and there is my final piece, and I'm totally in love with it. And I really hope that you enjoyed watching this as much as I enjoyed making it. I'll leave you with the phrase, maybe the journey isn't so much about becoming anything. Maybe it's about unbecoming everything that isn't really you, so you can be who you were meant to be in the first place. Thank you so much for watching. For more inspiration, please visit imaginecrafts.com.